What would happen if you stopped eating meat and went vegetarian, vegan for 30 days? Well, in this video right here, I'm gonna show you exactly what would happen and should you consider it? What are some of the conditions from a doctor's perspective that this may be a useful tool for you to implement or to try to overcome something? So it's Dr. Livingood. Let's break this thing down. And I use the word tool because that's what I believe a lot of diets are. It's a swear word around me really, because diets have beginning and end dates. They're not gonna fix all the problems that you have. There's a way of eating that we wanna turn into our lifestyle. And we wanna be able to eat from a healthy perspective, real foods, not have toxic foods, and get all the nutrients we need for life. That requires a healthy lifestyle. However, there are conditions and there are times when we need to pick up these tools to fix problems that we have. And I'm gonna talk to you about why not eating meat might be right for you if you have certain conditions. If you choose to not have meat for maybe your beliefs, or maybe you just feel better on it, then that is your lifestyle. And that's fantastic, and I'm totally for that. But to really have these arguments between meat eaters and non-meat eaters and keto people, and it kind of cracks me up because I'm like, it's just a style of eating and each of us is so different with different conditions. I like to see them more as tools. So the tool of not eating meat. What are the pluses? What are the minuses? I would pick up this tool if you've gone through a couple of these scenarios, right? One is you may seriously consider it with very inflammatory conditions going on in the body. The body's just so inflamed, it's time to switch it up. It's talking to you. Now, if you've been eating terrible, lots of processed food, lots of sugars, you might start there. But maybe you've tried some of those things and it just didn't get rid of the inflammation, or you're suffering with a cardiac incident. You've had a stroke, you've had a clot, you've had a heart attack. It might be time to really shake it up with those blood vessels. Cutting out meat that might mean the exact thing, because there's definitely ties to meat, especially unhealthy meats, with cardiovascular incidences. Now, there are other studies that show when you have clean sources of meat, it doesn't have any correlation at all. So you kind of get confused on which way is which, but I think it is worth it. If your cholesterol is out of control, you've had a heart incident or at risk of one, you have a blocked artery, taking this approach for 30 days or maybe up to 90 days might be the right choice for you. The other one is maybe you've gone through cancer, another very inflammatory condition where your body is just not turning over cells the way it's supposed to. You're getting a buildup of abnormal cells, which is then a tumor. This is a systemic problem. It might reside in your breast or in your prostate or in a specific area of your body, but systemically the immune system's struggling. And if changing the way you eat takes pressure off that immune system and allows it to get a surge, then I would absolutely look into that, because a lot of times with an approach of not eating meat, you're really focusing on a ton of nutrients with juicing and fruits and vegetables. And that might be the thing that is needed if you are struggling from a cancer perspective, right? Other conditions that might warrant it are just general itises, lots of inflammation going on in the body, or maybe you're just curious and you want to change up your energy, then it would be for you. But it doesn't come without negatives. So some of the benefits that you will see with it, you could experience over the next 30 days. Less inflammation. Insulin can potentially be lowered depending on what you choose to eat. I'm going to talk about that more in a minute. There's some potholes we got to watch out for as you're walking this. Okay, it's a little bit of a maze. I remember when I was a kid, you had to take the ball from one end to the other end and not fall into the hole with the ball. Do you know this little game, right? This labyrinth. It's kind of like that a little bit with a lot of these tools and diets. There's some big things to look out for so you don't fall into the holes. Improved gut bacteria is a thing that's regularly seen if you do it in a clean way. Digestive health can speed up because you're taking in so much more fiber. Now you might get a lot more bloating and gas. I'll talk about that in a minute. It can lower LDL, be very healthy for the cholesterol. Research has shown just switching to a more plant-based diet, eliminating meat, can help you lose up to 10 pounds. Now, some of that can just be muscles. We've got to watch out for that it might not actually be the fat that we're trying to get off. We want to optimize muscle and burn up fat. Can save you money because oftentimes meat and eggs can be more expensive, and there's the potential environmental impact that you're choosing from your values, that instead of the greenhouse gas effect of the gases released from the animals that are being mass produced in this country, that it is making an impact on the environment and you want to do something about that. That is your belief. So those are some of the benefits with it, but it doesn't come without negatives. So let's talk some of the downfalls, especially if it's misused. Number one, there's potential energy loss. There is not as much prevalent iron, protein, and B vitamins when you're eating a plant-based diet and not eating meat. In fact, B12 only comes from animal-based products. Iron can be much more deficient in a diet like this. So if you're struggling with anemia, if you're struggling with energy, you probably wouldn't advise this way of eating, because you're probably going to make the problem worse because of the lack of those crucial nutrients. If you're doing it clean, you can make up quite a bit of ground. You could also do a little bit of supplementation along the way if you need those B vitamins, such as a solid multivitamin. I would suggest, especially for the B12 and the folate, they work together, that you would take them in the methylated forms. They're already converted, so your body doesn't have to try to convert it. Most people are missing the enzymes needed to convert those. That's why energy gets way down in the first place. And you you want to increase a little bit of the stomach acid, I like maybe taking some apple cider vinegar or maybe some celery juice to help out the stomach acid, potentially some digestive enzymes to help break those down and absorb those nutrients properly if you're dealing with energy problems. Second negative is muscle loss. You might lose 10 pounds, but did you just lose the biceps? The more muscle we can put on, the more cranked up our metabolism is, the more we're good at burning off energy, burning off calories. More oxygen is inside the system in the body, less fat, which stores a lot of toxicity. So it's less toxicity, we're stronger, more energy. So cutting out a lot of the meat, you're risking cutting out a lot of protein. So you'll want to focus on pea proteins, beans. That's how you can get a lot of this protein back into the system from plant-based sources. When you eat this many vegetables, a lot of us have an extra load of bacteria built up in the system from fermentation and carbohydrates and too many potatoes and too many adult beverages. And it starts to really get kind of overload in the system. And then you go toss in cabbage and green peppers and lettuce and all these plant-based foods, right? It's a lot of fiber for your body to deal with. So a lot of gas, flatulence, bloating at first. So kind of want to ease into it. Steaming them might help a little bit more to sort of ease that transition. I always recommend 2, 3, 4 days of slowly coming off your meat-based products. Maybe if you're going vegan, your dairy products, and easing into all plant-based to give your body time to build up the digestive enzymes that are needed to break down cellulose, to break down carbohydrates, to break down the fibers that you're putting in. The last area to touch on is autoimmune response that can happen. Some nightshades that are found in peppers or green peppers or tomatoes, these can create irritations for people with autoimmune related conditions. Certain compounds in vegetables can create autoimmune responses inside of the body. So some people are really sensitive to these foods, maybe have a histamine response, maybe have an autoimmune response. So if you have an autoimmune disease, it's not that cutting out meat and going plant-based wouldn't be beneficial for you, but if you're not seeing the changes, your skin's still irritated, you're still seeing the inflammation, you might be sensitive actually to some of the plant-based products, and it might be a good idea to go away from those and eliminate them and pick a different tool. So the nutrients, we want to make sure we're trying to get them: calcium, iron, vitamin A, B vitamins, vitamin D, a solid multivitamin would help during this time, and then really getting a broad spectrum of fruits and vegetables. So let's take a look at what do we eat and not eat with this tool. Fruits, vegetables, milk alternatives. Now this could include oat, maybe rice. We want to be careful of those. I'll talk about those in a moment. Okay. Beans, peas, lentils, olive oils, avocado oils, coconut oils, and then of course those nuts and seeds of all types, tea, coffee, and then of course any kind of fruit juices or vegetable juices, those are all free game. Now what we want to be careful of is you could be a non-meat eater and eat beer, pizza, and French fries. So what I oftentimes see is we cut the meat, but then we put foods in that are very high in the glycemic index. They're putting fat on our midsection. They're hard on our livers, causing fatty liver. They're hard on our cholesterol. They're hard on our heart. So we don't want to replace the meat with potatoes and lots of grains and wheats and white breads. We want to be careful of those, right? Whole grain wheats would be okay. It needs to say whole grain. If it's bread, sprouted or seeded breads or those in that type that have the full fiber on them is the type you would go for. If you're struggling with weight, I would try to keep those sugars and carbohydrates minimized. Along with pastas, I like to lean more towards bean-based pastas, maybe a rice-based pasta, but you got to be careful that they're non-genetically modified. They don't have the pesticides and herbicides on them. I would stay away from soy-based products unless it says genetically modified. I do use like a liquid amino. It's an alternative for a teriyaki sauce. I do use one of those. Other than that, tofu, and some of these types of soy fake meat alternatives that you're seeing pop up everywhere, Beyond Meats, a lot of chemicals involved, a lot of genetically modified organisms involved. That means glyphosate, that means pesticides. It just takes a lot to turn that stuff into meat or a meat alternative. You gave up meat, a real food, don't replace it with a fake food. That's always the rule for any tool. This is why lifestyle principles still trump the tool of we've got to get nutrients in our body, we've got to get healthy fat, we can't have too much sugar, we can't have too many toxins, and we've got to make sure that we don't overeat. So that means staying away from meat, beef, pork, any kind of game, poultry, chicken, eggs, fish, shellfish, insects, or any of the fats from any of those. Now, vegetarians oftentimes will go for eggs or dairy products such as milk or cheese or yogurt. They will still go for honey, but if it's vegan, they usually cut all of those things out. So you kind of got to determine which one's good for you. I think if you're trying to fix inflammation, you're trying to fix a cancer or a heart problem, cutting out dairy is probably a pretty good idea because it's probably one of the more toxic parts of all of these foods. So your example meal might be a fruit smoothie in the morning, right? Put some healthy fats in there, cook some coconut milk in there, get some, maybe some spinach or some kale, get some solid nutrients, maybe add in some pea protein, right? To really bolster that up. Some pumpkin seed protein is another really good one. It has a lot of nutrients in it. Lunchtime, you might have a vegetable soup would be a good idea. You can go crazy with that. Lots of different ideas. Hummus and veggies is a good option to crunch on. And then maybe at night, you're making an eggplant lasagna. If you're allowed to have some cheese, ooh, can't even hardly tell the difference, even though it's missing the meat. So just some examples. There's plenty of recipes on drlivingood.com if you need some more help with that. But just keep in mind, eliminating meats for a 30-day period of time, you're gonna see energy changes. Just make sure you don't lose too much muscle. Make sure you're not putting in toxic foods. And at the end of it, here's how you start to come out of it. You eliminated meats. You maybe eliminated dairy. You eliminated all animal products. And then you wanna start easing your way out after 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. Get a new blood test. Test your cholesterol. Test your heart numbers. See if it made a difference. Measure with the scale. See how it did for you. And keep track of how you feel while on it. Then you'll know, does it work well for you? Do some tests and see. Now, you wanna ease off of it. Here's how I would do it. I would take 3 to 4 days. I would ease back into meat-based products. I would add them in one at a time, and I would make sure I'm taking digestive enzymes to make sure you have enough to break down the peptides and amino acids that are in the protein, okay? So a simple digestive enzyme, I'll put one in the link there for you. It's in my greens, it's in my GI support, to make sure that you don't create indigestion and create problems in the digestive tract by re-adding them. Now, you could go food by food and see if it has an impact. So clinically, for a long time, I've used a chart called a Cocoa Pulse test. And this is just a simple list of foods in their food groups. This is not difficult for you to find. And so Cocoa Pulse test means that you take a heart rate monitor, it goes onto your finger. And I'll put a link in the description so you can grab one. I don't make them or anything like that, but just like, here's one that I trust. And it just clips on there, it's real cheap. And you can actually test foods that you bought at your grocery store in your body. As opposed to like a food tolerance test, you're just testing in general, but the actual food you eat. And if your pulse goes up or down 3 or 4 more points, you're sensitive to that food potentially. As it hits your mouth, your body's already having this reaction to it. So you could go through and test. If we go back to the chart, fruits and veggies, obviously we're gonna be eating grains and starches. But when you get down into meat or fish, you could just individually test pork, beef, chicken, turkey, salmon, anything that you'd normally eat, shrimp, right? You could test cow's milk, cheese, butter, sour cream, and you can just go through one at a time and take a look as you come off of vegetarianism or plant-based diet, you wanna add meat back in, do you have any sensitivities to these things? Is there a problem there? It's a really simple way to test, was that right for me? Did I succeed? Of course, can retest blood works, cholesterols, CRP levels, see if you're doing it for your heart, or maybe it's your blood cell counts if you're doing it for like a cancer or immune-related condition. So you kind of measure the results. So anywhere from 30 days up to 90 days, you may try that out, see if it's good for you. Some of you might say, I love it. I'm gonna do it for a lifetime. Just make sure you're taking those B vitamins and a well-rounded multivitamin to sort of suffice to get some of those nutrients in, and try to eat well-rounded. Stay away from toxic fats, stay away from the sugars. The lifestyle principles still apply. If you need help with those, there's a description and a breakdown of those in my book. This is another tool that can be used at certain times, or maybe one that you really like because you can pull it off long-term. But we want to be thinking, can I eat this way the rest of my life to stay healthy, not just be healthy for 30 days? That's what I challenge you to do. But this one just might get you over a hump of something you're struggling with. If you want more help with that, maybe you want to look at an anti-inflammatory approach or a gut approach. I put some videos right here for you to go deeper into the subject of what could be causing your issue in the first place, and then there's links in the description. I'll be back with you soon.